Welcome to the Heal, Thrive, Dream podcast, where trauma survivors become healthy thrivers. Each month, we'll feature a theme in the trauma recovery and empowerment field. To promote your recovery, healing, and learning how to build dreams, here's your host, Karen Robinson, transformational coach and therapist.
Welcome to the Heal, Thrive, Dream podcast. Today, my guest is another summit speaker. Our summit is on May 30th. It's Revitalization. It talks about the physical impact on our bodies after trauma. And Rebecca Hogg knows what that is like. Rebecca has an LPC. She's a licensed professional counselor. She's a holistic therapist and a therapeutic coach, specializing in helping clients heal and thrive from trauma. She is the founder of Canvas Counseling and Wellness. She integrates Somatic Experiencing, EMDR, internal family systems, and more in her intensives. Rebecca is an upcoming author redefining healing through the relationship with time itself in her new book, Healing Time. Rebecca, thank you for being here today.
Yes, thank you so much for having me and for hosting the summit. It's really important.
I appreciate that. How come you applied to be a speaker for the summit? What about the summit seemed enticing to you?
The fact that it's all focused on basically healing from trauma, obviously, but the post-traumatic growth part, I don't think is talked about as much. There's a lot of focus, obviously, on the trauma pieces, which are definitely needed. And people also need to know, what does healing look like for different people? It's not just only this track or only this way. And sharing a little bit about my story, because I recently told my publisher that it's not because of what I went through of who I am, but it's because of what I worked through of who I am. And that's really important. And that can feel overwhelming sometimes when it's like, oh, that's going to be a lot of work. And yes, there is work. And we can also incorporate some play and have some fun in that, which sounds odd, but it happens in therapy sessions. There's sometimes laughter, there's movement, things like that. So I think that's a really important aspect for people to know. There's not just so like it's heavy stuff, but we can lighten. The whole point is we're lightening the load, and how can we lighten that even more in that process?
Yeah, that was really beautifully said. Now, I know that you are, I hope it's okay to use this phrase. If you don't relate to it, it's okay to describe it a different way. A lot of therapists, and myself included, who have complex trauma histories, we call ourselves wounded healers. Does that label work for you, or do you have a different one?
I've not thought about
it. Or you
before.
reject labels.
I think labels I think labels can be helpful to understand ourselves and other people better and connect with them. So I'm not all or nothing about it. They're all good, they're all bad. So there's time and place for them. So I think that's a beautiful phrase for that. So I've not thought about it as far as that, but I think it fits. So, I'll have to think about it more.
Yeah. I actually find it endearing. That's maybe a weird or interesting word too, because I know when I want to seek help, it's so much. Let's say I'm going through a divorce, which I've gone through, and understand you have as well. When we go through a divorce, when we're getting help, if we know that the person we are talking to has also been through a divorce, it's they get it. Like, they don't know our story, they haven't walked in our shoes, but at least they know like some of the elements of what that process means, like how stressful the whole damn thing is. So I think for clients knowing sometimes that we've survived some really hard shit, I think it's okay. They're going to have compassion. They're going to get me a little better.
Yes, I've definitely found that to be true. Like, even when I've seen my own counselors, if they're self-disclosing, obviously ethically appropriate way, it helps. Yes, exactly what you're saying. Like, you let down a little bit of a wall sometimes that you might have not even known that you have, because you're like, are they going to get me? Am I going to have to over-explain myself? Or are they going to blame me? Those kinds of things.
Or judge in some way. Yeah. And so Okay. So with complex trauma, which is my specialty, and it sounds like it's yours too, where you are trained in the different modalities. Would you say that your own story is with complex trauma? Did you have trauma starting in childhood?
Not starting in childhood. We all have something from growing up, right? That our parents were raised by their parents, were raised by their parents, and so on, right? So there's things epigenetically, there's habits and things. And when we know better, hopefully we do better. And I would say that mine was more in adulthood.
Okay. And as we talked about before recording, it's okay to not share anything that you're not ready to share, but is there pieces of that trauma that you feel comfortable in sharing with the audience today?
So I would sum it up by saying that we all have how we're raised. We make decisions based on what we know, right? And that's how we're raised by not just our immediate family, but by the community that we're a part of and the culture at large and the world, the media that we are taking in, all of that. And so we make decisions based on that and beliefs and the ways that our bodies experiences things. I'm being very broad in saying that when I was married, the things that he brought in and that I brought in, we had different ways of going about things. And so there was a lot of difficulties in that relationship that I won't go into, but it did create I was labeled with the diagnosis of PTSD, and there was definitely depression in there and anxiety. And I didn't understand that. I didn't understand that for a long time because I wasn't always a therapist. This is my third career, the one that I always wanted,
Yeah.
and that I absolutely love. I'm right where I need to be. So it was, yeah, it was really difficult, not really knowing there was a lot of not really knowing if something was true, and having to navigate that in my life.
Yeah. So I really respect that you're having this boundary of deciding what you're going to share publicly and not, and things you're not going to share publicly, because it is complicated. And also we have to be mindful of, even though it's our truth, we have to be mindful of lawsuits. People can claim that we're slandering if we don't have exact evidence of every little thing that's happened, every little or big thing that's happened. So I'm not going to ask you about details about that trauma, but I want to know if you're comfortable with sharing some of those symptoms that you had when you first
Mhm.
had diagnosed with PTSD. Like, what symptoms were the most prevalent? I would love to hear more about that. I would love to hear about that. I
I
think it
know
would
what
be
you mean.
helpful for you to share.
It's interesting as you're asking too. I have done a lot of healing. I've done a lot of the therapies that I practice with clients. I have experienced those and other ones as well. And so if I feel also like I'm in a place where I can look back and I do remember it, but like one of the things with EMDR is that, and another one that I have done and offer is accelerated resolution therapy. And the idea is you're keeping the knowledge of certain things, but you're losing the pain, the way that it's held in the body. So sometimes when I'm asked that, I'm like, I really have to pause and think, and what was that I experienced in those ways? Because there has been a lot of healing. But what I would say is a lot of triggers, like things that I would see, hear, the associations. It felt like life wasn't really safe. Like I could go out anywhere, hear anything. I couldn't watch certain things on TV or have certain kinds of conversations that would, now it's fine that I can easily be a part of, but those would be triggering. I would spiral down and check out or hyper vigilant and constantly be looking for something that is that true? What does that mean? And just like a lot of questioning. I had a lot of trouble falling asleep, a lot of trouble staying asleep, and ended up getting on depression medicine for anxiety and medicine for sleep. And eventually was able to titrate off of that over time. But those are some things that stand out to me.
Mm. And do you remember? I know sleep is very vital for
Mm,
holistic well being. But do you remember like how your body was feeling? Did you have a lot of headaches, stomach aches? Did you have chronic pain, muscle tension, any medical issues at all from your
I had
traumas?
definitely a lot of tension in my neck and shoulders, and going to massages definitely helped. I learned a lot from my massage therapists about breathing and caring for the body and how to tighten and relax, progressive muscle relaxation, things like that. Yes, definitely neck, shoulders. I'm still working through some jaw tension that was became a habit of clenching. So then I needed to get a mouth guard because I was grinding my teeth at night. What else? Definitely, I could feel a lot in my hips. I didn't end up with at the point, how do I want to say it? I was headed that direction, I believe, because my autoimmune marker numbers were getting higher. And there was some other concerns in the blood work once I went to an integrative medicine specialist. They were saying, hey, these are looking concerning. And so thankfully I was able to start some changes in medications to supplements and movement and the nutrition and the sleep and all that stuff. Otherwise, it definitely could have been going that direction more. But yes, headaches, yes, tension headaches for sure. I do remember taking Tylenol and or acetaminophen and ibuprofen more than a person should.
Yeah, I think that's common. I hope you do mention that as part of the summit too, because we're
I'll
looking at
make a
the
note.
physical. Yeah,
Mhm.
we're looking at how trauma can impact our physical bodies. Because sometimes when it's happening, a lot of times we're really not aware. We just think, oh, I have a headache. We're not connecting the dots. Oh,
Yes.
my immunity is, we just think it's was always going to happen. And the truth is, it may be related to trauma, or it likely is related to our trauma.
So much. That is definitely like thankfully people are starting to understand somatic or they're seeking out somatic therapy. I get a lot of requests for that. And only in the last several years have I understood that I did the somatic experiencing training, which is a 3-year program. It's very intensive. And I almost
Mhm.
didn't do it. And I'm so glad I almost didn't, I started it and then I almost didn't continue, but I went back and I was like, let me see. And I was at a different place in my life and I was like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense because
Yes.
we're not just our brains. We have our brain is part of our body, but we sometimes act, oh, it's our brain and then our body, but our brain is a part of our body. So we have to understand how it all works together. And our bodies tell us more than just we need to use the restroom, we're hungry, we're tired. It's communicating so much more. So it's really meaningful to me to share that with clients and help them understand their bodies, their nervous system, that the sensation in their body is trying to communicate something. And
Mhm.
that I remember that being so foreign to me. My therapist would say, out of your head, and she would say out of your head and into your body, but she was just trying to help me understand there's more to it than that. And that was invaluable, invaluable, so that you can be more aligned and not like just separate.
I would love to hear how somatic experiencing, you could either say how it's been healing to you or give a specific example of how what you notice differently in your body with it. And maybe also give a client example when you do that work with clients. What is something maybe they're seeing differently in their body because of that important work that you're doing?
Mm. So for me, sometimes I will have tears hearing, like just even a little bit. It's not like a full cry, but I'll have a little bit of tears. And to me, everybody is different. That is an indicator that something in me knows something the rest of me doesn't, is what I'll say. And so sometimes it will happen, like I'll hear a song or watch something on TV or a movie or whatever, and like I'm noticing an emotion come up. I'm like, I'm not cognitively aware of that, but something in me is. And so that has always been in the back of my mind. And now it's more of the front of really paying attention to what do I know that I cognitively don't know? And the wisdom of the body is what one of the biggest takeaways that I learned from my somatic experiencing training, as well as you experience it. You learn, you practice. you have these different roles as the practitioner, the experiencer, and the observer. And it has helped me appreciate my body so much. And sometimes the unfortunate thing in some religious institutions is this disconnection from the body. The body is bad, and there's some shame associated with it rather than looking at it in a healthy way. And so I needed to relearn to appreciate my body and not be just dismissive of it. So an example for me, but also a client might be their heart is beating really fast. And they're like, I don't really know why my heart is beating fast. And maybe we've known each other for a year. So it's not like their first time in therapy with me and they're nervous or something. I'm like, why don't you pause, take a deeper, comfortable breath. And then you can put your hand on your heart or just give some attention to your heart, not with curiosity and compassion. I'm shortening maybe a little bit how I do it, but with curiosity and compassion, is there anything your heart wants you to know? And yes, there may be some physiological things. Obviously, go to the doctor if you have concerns, but there also can be a somato-emotional aspect to it where I've had clients, and this can apply to different parts of the body. It could be something with the stomach, or their foot just had this tightening. And so we just need to be curious about it. We're not saying it is connected to emotions only. There's definitely, obviously, again, check with your doctor, but the heart for myself and other clients, it's been things like communicating. I just want you to know what I'm trying to communicate to you about this person, or I'm fearful of this, or I'm even excited about this. And they're like, didn't even notice that or know that was there. So just attuning to it, giving the time to pause, be in that present moment, because we're very much in our society like rush, go. I'm guilty of that. So I'm very appreciative of somatic experiencing training to help me slow down
Yes.
and
Well,
teach others to do that.
yes. Yeah, I'm a little bit stubborn on that curve, but yes.
There's a phrase that I like to also say. It's from, I forget what branch of the military. Maybe it's Navy SEALs. I don't want to say wrong, and some firefighters I've seen have said this online, but slow is smooth is fast. And that can apply a lot to chronic pain healing I will use with clients. But it's this idea too of if I'm rushing, let's say in the morning I'm rushing, I have my coffee, orange juice, whatever, I spill it. Now I got to take the time to clean that up. And now I'm not actually going to be on time or fast there earlier like I thought. So sometimes when we slow down, then it's a smoother walk, drive, thinking process, and then we actually can get there faster, which that's paradoxical to then what we have been taught, modeled, practiced, all of that. So
Yes. One day I will be smooth.
a little bit at a time. Like a wave, right? They crash and then they slow down a little bit. Yes, it is progress. We're always on a journey. We're always arriving, if you will, perhaps is a way to say it, and helping each other do that. So that was also an aspect that when coming back to the question at the beginning about the summit, that was something that appealed to me, to be with other people who have experienced trauma and healing, to collectively share our experiences, collectively share our knowledge and hear from others as well. Because to have a learner's mindset is really important, because we always have something that we can learn. Even if we've heard it before, we're at a different phase in our growth and healing.
Yeah, and it's nice to be in a community of people that just get it. It's nice to have the vocal expression of our story can be healing. Like I tell my clients all the time, and actually I learned this in grief work, that is called TWA, talk and art. We talk, write, and art some of these feelings. And I know obviously movement is another way. But if we get in the habit of these approaches, wow, a lot of emotion and toxic
Mhm.
stuff can be released. It's pretty powerful.
Yes. On that note, if something I really think has been helpful to me and clients is understanding that the word emotion, if you look at the E motion, I think about E for energy. So in an emotion, there is an energy, right? Like sad has a different energy than mad, or happy has a different energy than excited. And so in that, it's from we can feel that in our bodies. You see a little kid and they're just who they are usually. And you can see they're sad, you can see they're mad, you can see they're happy, you can see they're excited because their bodies are often doing something, right? They may throw themselves on the floor in a temper tantrum, or they may jump up and down and shake something. So we have energy that's within the emotion. So depending on what it is, it can, like you were saying, become toxic over time if we're not processing it. And so we need to learn how to process it, work with the fears of processing it, those kinds of things.
Really well said. And I had this question come up to ask you, like with the different modalities that you use, and I love that you have training in different modalities. I don't love it when therapists just stick to one. I understand we can have our favorites, right? I have favorites too. But when you stick to just one thing, it's such a disservice to our clients. I'm curious if your clients that you've had since being a therapist, if they have a preference or what you're seeing is working best with particular clients that you serve.
I have, like, a lot of people are now seeking out somatic because of social media helping with that, which is great to reconnect with our bodies and understand them. So a lot of people are seeking that out right now. And internal family systems, I would say, is probably a really big one to understand this seeming we can be like wanting to go do something, right? An event. And it might be like part of me wants to go and part of me doesn't want to go. And once we really delve into that, there's so much that we can understand about even just those two emotions or desires to go or to not go, and what's going on with each of those. I would say a lot of people really like that because they're understanding themselves better, understanding themselves in a way that they didn't know was possible, and helps them to be more aligned with themselves and understand their thoughts, their emotions, their body, all of that. But yeah, I like incorporating it, and I do a lot of intensives. And I have a workbook that I send them that helps us to really come up with a plan that's best for them. So it might be that we start off with some parts work, and then there's a part that's I really need to heal this experience, this memory. And so then we might go to EMDR and ART for that, and then come back to parts work. And then we might incorporate some somatic release of emotions as well.
You have no idea how that just sings to my soul. I'm also trained in ART.
Yes. It's good stuff.
I love that because our field can be rigid at times too. And I think the most of the time that I've heard people doing intensives, they're sticking with one modality and doing, instead of someone coming to therapy for, 5 weeks for that modality, you would put it in an intensive. But I really love that you're doing it more with a mixed model. When I do intensive, I call it VIP healing days. I think I do something similar. I probably wouldn't have described it the same way as you do, but I definitely am looking at the top down, bottom up approaches. So we do some treatment, we regulate, we do some treatment, we regulate. And it is actually a blend of modalities.
Yeah, it sounds like that pendulation between, like Somatic Experiencing calls it, like the trauma vortex and the counter vortex. So moving between those to help build that resilient nervous system is great. So yes, if they don't have in the first session, so I do an intake before the 3 hours or 6 hour intensives, and I want them to really understand, like, at least a foundational of their nervous system and where they're usually at, so that we can incorporate some of those things if they're really hyper activated, how to downregulate a little bit, and so on.
Yeah, beautiful. How did you learn about the idea of doing intensives, and did you come up with your own way, or is it all just like client specific?
So it came from me needing it. So insurance companies, I believe, are the ones who came up with this is less than an hour session and that's all you need. But what I realized after years and years of therapy, when I was doing internal family systems, no, when I was doing EMDR with my therapist, I fell asleep twice. And I didn't like, that's not cool to
Thank
have
you
to
for listening
pay
in
for
today.
therapy that you
Please
fall
join us
asleep
next
in.
week, same day and
And
time.
so
Also,
then
I
my
would love for you to
therapist,
check
we
out my
tried to continue,
website,
but then she's, let's do internal family
healthrivedream.com.
systems. And I was like, what is this? But it was a game changer for sure. So there was one time where I had all these protector parts to protecting a wound that I have. That's what we call it in internal family systems, or parts work. And I had built a relationship with those parts of myself to understand and appreciate them, not judging them. And so then they were able to step back safely, and so that I could help to access that wound and heal it. And that took a whole hour, basically. And I was like, do you have any extra time? And she's, yeah. So we went a little bit extra, and we were getting some really good progress. And I was like, do you have a little extra? And so we went for 3 hours. And so we did that several times, and it helped so much, because otherwise what it was is it's this crisis of the week that was coming
It's
in, and I
fragmented.
wasn't,
Yeah.
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 And so I want to talk about the things that are going on, but I really need to dig in so that if there's an aspect of the past impacting the present, that can change. And so that's when the kind of the impetus a little bit for my book of the healing time is it started to heal time, past, present, and now my future has changed and is changing, right? Because I'm changing what's happening right now. So when I realized how helpful that was to me, then we moved to 2 hours, hour and a half, and then as needed. So I started thinking about clients that needed it and offering it to them, and seeing that helped several years ago. And then January of last year, that's all I do for new clients. And then they can continue as
Thank-
needed. But I'm like, there's no point in prolonging the struggle and the suffering that we have if we can have that extra time to really dig into that, to have that post-traumatic growth.
Yes, really good. And I've had other therapists on the podcast that talk about internal family systems, and we are short on time, but could you take just a quick minute and talk about the parts that Dr. Schwartz, did you do his training or somebody else's?
So yes, I did because it's really hard to get into the official ones. I've done the
Right.
6-month inner circle, I believe it's called, several years ago. And then with my own therapist and with clients. So there's basically, so we have a self, and the self is like this unburdened aspect of us. There's the 8 C's, 5 P's, and ones that really stand out to me are curiosity and compassion. So when we are in self, then accessing the other parts of us that he calls the protectors. And then there's 2 categories of protectors. One is the managers, and one is the firefighters. And a lot of us have really good manager parts. We know how to go to work and get stuff done at home and blah, blah, blah. But both of those jobs of the protectors, the managers, and the firefighters are both doing the same thing and protecting what is called the exiles, or the or wounds that we have that we don't want anybody else to see. That's when we might get defensive. That a firefighter is one that's like defense mechanism, reactive, versus a manager is more proactive. But when the manager can't do what it normally does to protect the wound, then the firefighter comes in. So you might have somebody's firefighter who, is yelling or throwing things or shopping or other different things that aren't so healthy to, but the both have the same goal. They're just going about it very different ways. So the idea is to get to understand those protectors without judgment and align with them to help unburden them so that we can help to heal the wounds that they have worked so hard to protect. So it's really helped me understand and appreciate myself and have more compassion for myself.
Yeah. Yeah. And understanding there's a reason for our resistance and our defenses. It's
Correct.
huge work. Yeah. Rebecca, we have to wrap up because of time, but I want to give you an opportunity if you have any final words of wisdom or something compassionate you want to say to someone who's listening that's really going through some of those struggles of trauma or feeling wounded right now in their relationships. Any wisdom?
Don't give up. No matter if you are talking to a therapist or a doctor or a friend and they don't understand, if there's something in you that's, I feel like there's something that's not quite right, like there's something different, seek that out. So once I found a therapist who was able to say, hey, this is trauma, everything made sense. Everything started to make sense, I should say. And that's when I was able to heal. So keep pursuing the healing that you need, even if it's different than somebody saying that it is for them. So listen to that inner wisdom, because you will find, who was it? I think Buddha or Rumi said, what you seek is seeking you. And so you'll find what you're looking for. So don't give up.
I think that's the quote in the book the chapter I just published. I think that's
Ah,
one I used. Very cool.
and it's also like
Rebecca, thank
a Bible verse too, for those who are like Christian faith based. So there's an aspect of that goes with that.
yeah. Thank you so much, Rebecca, for being not only a guest on our podcast today, but also for being a summit speaker. I really appreciate you.
Yes. And thank you for taking all the time and effort and energy that you have to put that on and put that on throughout the year. I'm looking forward to
Thank
it.
you.